Guys, summer is upon us, and that means being more active. Whether it's walking, running, hiking, biking, or kayaking, you're probably going to need a set of headphones for your favorite music or podcasts while you're on the go. So why not have the most stylish premium headphones the internet has to offer? We've partnered again with our good old friends at Sudio to bring you an exclusive offer. Go to Sudio.com and explore the wide assortment of elegant earbuds, on-ears, and even wireless speakers. Sudio is offering 15% off for every Sight and Sound listener. All you have to do is use promo code Sight and Sound. That's written out in its entirety, Sight, A-N-D, Sound, to get 15% off your brand new pair of stylish quality headphones. That's Sudio.com, promo code Sight, A-N-D, Sound at checkout. Do it now. Support Sudio, support the show.
Okay, now you can start talking.
So I'm super depressed. Why, Snelling? Well, I went to the eye doctor.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about when you went to the doctor and he told you, Ryan, you're depressed now.
Oh, I mean, that's a different doctor's office visit. I went to the eye doctor, the optometrist, because I wanted to go back to contacts. And I tried this a year ago.
I don't approve of this.
I don't care. So I tried this a year ago, and my astigmatism moved.
Astigmatism? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
It's like a possum?
A-S-T.
I didn't know that. Cool.
So it moves. And when the optometrist said that, I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe I don't really know what an astigmatism is.
Yeah.
It rotates on my eyeball. Got contacts a year ago. It didn't work. I gave up. I got the frames that I'm wearing right now. I went back to do it again. My prescription hadn't really changed, but my astigmatism moved again. So I was like, okay, here we go. Maybe the contacts will actually work again. So today was day 3, and they're not working. They only lasted like 3 hours, and I ran home, and I had to switch them back. And so I don't know if I'm ever going to... I should have never, ever quit wearing contacts.
He doesn't want to talk about weather, but he'll talk about his eyesight.
Put it on the poll. Do you like when Jay burps at you on the podcast? Yes or no?
Kind of doesn't matter. You know what? I think I'm going to say that they do like it because there's this movement, I feel like, for us to be more
abhorrent,
racy and raunchy on the podcast.
I mean, I would give anything for that to be.
I don't know why we aren't. I really don't know why we aren't. I think it's because you and I have that type of humor, but we've never really had that type of humor on the podcast.
Well, it's like,
but that's not super true because going back to that wild video we did, it was pretty.
Let's
talk about horse cock.
Let's be for real here. Let's lay it all out. I mentioned this the other day, or you and I have an interesting friendship.
We've talked about this before on the podcast.
There's no way that we have.
I swear to God, we've talked about this before on the podcast.
Do you even know where I'm going?
Yes, you're going to talk about how the relationship that you and I have is not the same as the relationship you have with your other friends.
All I was going to say, Brando made fun of you the other day.
Yeah.
Oh, he said you took a picture of all your vapes, and what do you call it, a douche graveyard or something like that?
Yeah.
And so my point was, if I ever made that joke to you, you would get mad at me.
That joke in particular, no, that wouldn't bother me.
Any kind of joke.
I promise you that wouldn't bother me from you.
I don't know how many times.
Because I'm self-deprecating about vaping myself. I'm ashamed of it. It's a terrible thing.
Is that the word? You're not ashamed of it.
I'm not ashamed of it, but I definitely hide it. I definitely hide. I don't even know if hiding it is the right word. Compared to most other people that do it, I'm not out there like, hey guys, I vape. That's a thing. But
no, yeah, you're not like that.
I would not hesitate to start a vaping YouTube channel. I'm serious about that. Just to get ahead in life.
I guess my ultimate point is, since you and I have been close friends, there have been
Allegedly.
hundreds of cases I've thought to make a joke, to roast you or rip you, and probably 95 to 98% of the time, that joke is never said because I feel like we don't have that friendship.
That's good. That's for the best. You don't have to have that type of relationship to be raunchy or racy on the podcast.
Well, I would like to be able to. I think it includes making fun of each other. I would like to make fun of each other. I would like. That's what's missing in this friendship.
We could do that. You fucking asshole. You dumb bitch. This is what this Ursa Sight and Sound is like. Let's talk about dicks. No, I'm just kidding.
It's weird because I just started listening to The Fighter and the Kid, and I don't know.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah, I just picked it up. They have guests on there that I'm really enjoying.
Yeah, you know what's weird though about that? What's funny about that is you keep sending me these things, and I want to be the snob about it and be like, I don't think you should listen to the guest ones. Those aren't the best episodes, but it's whatever.
I like them.
It's cool that you're
Nick
listening.
Swartzen and then Simon Rex, who I'm a big fan of as well. So I don't know. I just like them.
The Rappaport podcasts are classics.
Are they good?
Yeah. You know what's weird though? This is random. They just crowned, what's that guy's name? I forget his name. He used to be on The Real World or Road Rules. I can't remember. One of their guests they've had on a lot recently, they crowned as their guest of the year.
Okay.
I don't think he's funny at all.
Oh, that's disappointing.
At all. The only time I thought he was funny was when he was making fun of Brendan Schaub's attire, that he looks like a mechanic. and Brendan Schaub fired back and said, "Bro, you look like an extra off of Joe Dirt." Like,
that's great.
He's like, "You have
Is
a
Brendan
mullet."
Schaub funny? I've never heard him be funny.
Schaub, he's funnier than Callan. He's way funnier.
But he's got like a
that's what's missing on the guest episodes, because he's quiet on the guest episodes.
Okay, maybe that's it, because like if he's ever funny, it's funny in the way that anyone I know can be funny.
He's also the most offensive.
Yes.
Easily the most offensive.
So something that I experimented with, and
being offensive.
No, I'm actually pretty good at that.
Let's talk about the gays.
I've been more tame, just because of the climate that we're in, and I always feel the PC climate.
It is getting warmer.
Even though I hate it. I can't stand it. I tweeted something out earlier in the week, and I think it speaks volumes to where we're all at as a society, where I'm at. I mentioned how I don't like fake nails on girls.
Yeah.
And I hesitated, and I tweeted it out because part of me thought, you know what? I would have no problem tweeting this out 4 years ago.
Right.
Because it's just an honest take. Not a big deal. And Christina, who is Sight and Sound's queen,
Queen K,
she responded to it and said, I don't think you should do this. And to her credit, I think she's great for keeping me on my toes and being respectful and things like that. But part of her reasoning was, I don't think you should do this because there could be a girl that likes you, that follows you, and you might have hurt her feelings or blah, 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 blah. And I said, you know what? That's not good enough.
Yeah.
Because, for one, I know that that's not the case. And two, it's just a thing. I do not have to like this.
Well, she obviously doesn't know Ryan Snelling well enough, because even if that was the case, it wouldn't stop him.
That's true.
Yeah.
But it's like, there have been...
Brian has never taken the feelings of a woman into consideration.
But it's like that's just something you can say to a woman. Like, if you're in a relationship, like, you can just say, I don't like it when you wear fake nails, or I don't really like fake nails, because like, that's just a preference. Like, it doesn't mean I don't like anyone who does it. It's just not my preference when it comes to what I'm attracted to.
Right.
It doesn't say anything about you as a person if you have fake nails. It just means, God forbid, you don't have Ryan Snelling's attention, which frankly nobody wants anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it. I just didn't get it. Not because, not that there's anything really to get. I didn't associate with it in the sense where I've never considered.
Because you don't think about that.
I've never considered my stance on fake nails. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
They're just a thing.
It's actually not.
It exists on a woman.
I mean, we could get
or a man.
We could get more broad because I think you even something I think about all the time. We had a birthday get together for myself.
Oh yeah.
Not last year, but the year you were there. We went to Longhorn and we all came back to my old house. We sat in the basement. You brought over the Tecatis.
Yeah.
And it was a good. It was a nice little visit.
Yeah.
And I was in my basement with several friends, and girls were present.
I know where this is going.
I mentioned how I don't like nose rings.
Right.
And you and Kayla happened to be walking down the stairs, and Kayla was like...
you and Kayla have nose rings. Oh, that's what you were about to say.
No. And then you and Kayla happened to be walking down the stairs, and Kayla was like, well, what's wrong with nose rings? And
Right.
It was just like, I just don't like them. You're walking down the stairs with your boyfriend. Why does it matter if I don't like nose rings?
Right.
So the overall point, Christina happened to ask me, and I think nose rings included. Kayla,
it's not like you said I don't like people with nose rings.
Right. It's not like I was talking behind Kayla's back. Well, fuck Kayla. What you say?
You know what I'm going to do? Go ahead. Keep talking.
So Christina asked me, so what is it about fake nails? Why don't you like it? And I realized that I don't like things about I don't prefer girls. I don't want them to make decisions to make them look less like a natural human being.
I put my nose ring.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Why?
I didn't even know you had that.
Well, yeah.
I had no idea you had your nose pierced.
No, it's
Is
not
that fake?
pierced.
Is it fake?
No, it's not fake. It's a ring that I can shove on my nose skin.
I thought you had a hole through your.
No.
What's the
Septum.
middle part? Septum.
No.
So anyway,
I do have my nipples pierced.
do you really?
No. What? What about that would make sense?
So one time, Luke loves when we talk about sex. One time I was dating this girl, or not dating her, texting. Excuse me. I don't date girls.
Oh my
God.
God.
I was texting this girl.
Never known you to ever date a girl.
Exactly. That's how I like it. I was texting this girl, and I'd known her for years. It was one of those things where you know each other for years, and then one day it's like it snaps, and it's like, what if we did things? So we were sort of talking about hanging out.
This is how I feel about Eric and his roommate.
Oh, it might happen one day. Yeah. So anyway, we just made this uncomfortable for him. So I was texting this girl.
Well, guys.
And we talked about hanging out. And then she drops this bomb on me. And I'm calling it a bomb. It's a bomb to Ryan Snelling, but any other guy might not think that much about this. But I did, and I didn't know what to do. She goes, I just want to tell you, by the way, before it surprises you, I have my pierced.
I don't know what that could be anything. Her clitoris?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Wow.
And
I've never stumbled across that.
I didn't know what to do, and I stopped texting her.
Now I'm trying. Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why that was.
I would just be more curious.
Yeah, but I just didn't know how I felt about it. Because I'm not, like I said, I'm not a big fan of extravagant jewelry and women attaching things to their body that make them look less like what a human is supposed to look like.
So
that's not what I respond to.
The two most promiscuous times in my entire life were like junior and senior year of high school, and in between me dating Kayla and the girlfriend that I had prior to that. And the more recent one was not by choice, really. I was looking for love, and it wasn't, things weren't meshing. One thing that I realized about that time, so in my later years of my life, I'm a much more considerate guy. I think about things more.
You don't think about me.
And this and that. That's not true. Come to your aid multiple times. And the aid of other people on your behalf. And
that story next. No, I'm just kidding.
So in these years, the Jay of old, the Jay that was more like, I'm over this now. I'm just going to leave. Like, whatever. Fuck off. That Jay didn't exist. But he came back up again. There are so many instances where I've been in a situation where I'm like, I'm not all in on this right now, but I'm going to try to make it work. The switch that's flipped from I'm going to try to make it work to I don't want any part of this anymore is so drastic. Like, yeah. There are just instances, and they don't make any sense. I was seeing this one girl for almost an entire month, and I was like, I'm not super into it, but I'm going to try to make it work. There was just one day, and it's always the same thing, I feel like, with guys. One day I was just like, I just don't want to fucking be here right now. I really just want to do other things.
It's like when I gave up dating to watch Game of Thrones.
Exactly. And
she's getting married next month.
I was sitting on the couch one day, and I was just like, I think I'm going to go. Well, you've only been here for an hour. Yeah, I'll call you later.
Right.
Bye. I'll see you.
Right.
I miss that. I miss those times. Not that I need to be that person now, but I can definitely be that with my family and my friends. Like tonight, I went to this derby party. Happy Cinco de Mayo.
I do want to. We'll get to that.
I was at this derby party / Cinco de Mayo celebration at my family's, and I literally walked in. I ate. I went outside and vaped until it was ready or time for dessert. Went and had dessert, and then I just left. And they were like, "Why are you leaving?" I was like, nothing's happening here. Nothing's really going on. And I just was like, I'll see you guys
Was
later.
it like your mom, dad, and Cracker?
No, there was way more people there.
A lot of people?
Yeah, and I was just not about it. See, the problem with my family is I love my family very, very much, and for the most part,
the reason why you don't ever want to live anywhere but Versailles.
Yeah, for the most part. Well, and it's cheap, and I work here, but we link up on a lot of things in life, but a lot of fundamental things we just don't. Like our obviously our political views are very different. Our social views are very, very different, and those things I can kind of push to the back a little bit for the most part when I'm with my parents, my grandparents. But when other family members who are very loud and very just boisterous come into the situation, they heighten those things. Like one of my family, I'm going to put it on blast because I think it's fucking stupid. One of my family members was just ripping somebody, just fucking ripping somebody who was a vegan in their family, like about how dumb it was and stupid.
Right.
I'm not a vegan.
Isn't that annoying?
I'm not a vegan. I don't associate with veganism but if somebody wants to be a vegan, especially because she said that this person was doing it because they have health issues and they were exploring.
Right.
I was just like, what the fuck is your problem? Like,
yeah.
What the fuck does it hurt you for somebody else to be a vegan? Why don't you shut the fuck up?
Did you say it to him?
No, I was just like...
You should have.
I was just...
Not that you should have said that, but you should have said something.
No, I was just... I mean, that's what made me not want to be there. I was like, why are you acting like a fucking idiot?
Right.
My family sucks. I'm just kidding.
My boss is a little bit like that. He likes to... He's more so just kind of giving me shit because we know each other, but he gives me a ton of crap because even before I had to go to the doctor and get on this diet, which I just failed miserably at a second ago, but that was whatever. It was a cheat thing. But he always gives me shit about like going to get salads and eating and drinking the shit that I do.
Eating that rabbit food again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. And I
am.
If
Are you
saw
uncomfortable?
the amount of supplements, like if you replaced all of your vape shit right there, you got like a dozen things right there. You could replace every single one of those with one of the supplements that I'm on right now. It's fucking absurd. But yeah, where was I going with this? Oh, I know this has
Comixology.
this has nothing to do with the Derby, but I was thinking about when you said you were just leaving that girl's. I remember one time I was talking to this girl and I was like super into her. Like,
oh yeah,
into her to
like
the point. Into her to the point where like
you were into her.
I still think about what she's up to, even though we'll probably never have a thing again. But she was house sitting for her uncle in Louisville, so she was like, "Hey, do you want to come? Like, I'm staying the night at my uncle's house. Do you want to come up?" And I said, "Yeah." So this was happening during David Letterman's last week hosting the Late Show.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll come stay with you, but only if we can watch Letterman. Because otherwise, watching Letterman would have been enough reason for me to not go.
Yeah.
So I had to make sure that we could do that when we got there. And she let me because she was great.
That's the story?
I miss her.
Can you miss somebody? How much time did you spend with this person?
Quite a bit. We talked for probably like 6 to 8 months.
Interesting. Why don't you reconnect with her?
Well, she's had a long-term boyfriend for the past couple of years, and I don't know. I just think it's one of those things where so much time goes by, like I'm the only one that thinks about her sometimes.
Yeah.
There's no way that I cross her mind hardly at all anymore. We'll have like a random conversation here and there, but that's pretty much the extent of it.
I feel like Drake has written a song about this
Probably
situation.
What about Comixology?
I know when that hotline bling. Actually, nothing about Comixology, but I was I don't know. I had the bug from Avengers last.
I feel
week.
that.
Also, shout out to Mike from Warhorse Machine thing.
Warhorse Machine.
Yeah. Shout out to that guy. It was
Mike Denniston.
It was a good time.
Yeah, you had a good time with him, huh?
Yeah. A little long. Podcast a little long. For how late it was.
So since when does that bother you?
For how late it was. It's the lateness that's
Okay.
getting to me.
Okay.
Your boy can only do it so often.
I mean, I don't blame you.
Right.
You have a completely different schedule than I do.
Yeah, for sure. So that was a good time. Anyways, I had the bug for some more comic book stuff. And it's weird because after watching Infinity War and that feeling like, obviously we're getting the next one next year, but it feels like a bookend. And I've watched so much Marvel stuff lately on the lead up to that I'm kind of like, well, I want more, but I've watched all this other stuff. So I subscribed to Marvel Unlimited on my iPad. You know, I just got a new iPad, and it's been great. And just to revisit a conversation that we've had before about how daunting of a task it is. And I know you have a take of Brando's take on comic book stuff. Let me just say this. One of the great things about these apps is that it makes you realize how fucking antiquated and dated just a comic book store is. Like, I've talked about the stress of where to even start in a comic book store before, and it makes it so easy in these apps. But even at that, there's still so much at your fingertips.
Easier.
It is easier. There's still so much at your fingertips that it's like, man, I don't even know where to start. So I started rereading a comic book. Honestly, it's my favorite comic book series I've ever read, period. It's The Ultimates, which is Marvel's Ultimate Universe, their version of the Avengers, which
You're not talking about Marvel switch into, like, not the blanket. It's a series. You're not talking about the Ultimate movement. You're talking about the series called The Ultimates.
Yes, there's a series called The Ultimates, which is it's essentially the Ultimate Avengers, but that's not what it's called.
You're just not including X-Men, Ultimate X-Men.
I'm not right now.
Ultimate Spider-Man.
I'm going to read some crossover stuff from that.
I remember those books very well.
Yeah, I'm going to read some crossover stuff. They even had their version of, I believe, like a Galactus or a Secret Wars, maybe. In that, a lot of what the MCU is based off of, not specifically, but some of the elements come from the Ultimates, because it's essentially, even though they redo a lot of the Marvel comic books, the Ultimates are super modernized, like very modernized. So much so where, like, there's not even really a villain in the first run. It's just it's aliens, which whatever, but and they're sort of treated like a terrorist attack.
Okay.
And it's just really cool. It's really fucking good, and I love every second of it.
What you referenced, my take on Brando's take. Brando's had several conversations with us about comic apps and subscription services, and I just don't think he gets that that's how you have to do it. Does that make sense? So he just complains that you still pay for play. Like, it's not exactly Netflix.
Right.
Marvel Unlimited is more so.
Yeah, it definitely is.
But it's also only Marvel. It's also only
it's only Marvel,
6 months,
but you do get Star Wars.
But it's 6 months prior to the release.
What do you mean?
Like, if a comic book comes out this Wednesday, it's not included in Marvel Unlimited.
I don't give a fuck about that.
I'm not saying you should.
No, I know, but
I'm just saying
yeah.
there are. It's still not the most ideal. Like, my point is, it's just not ever going to be as ideal as he wants it to be. Like, and they still make absolute sense. The way Comixology does it makes complete sense. Do I think that comics are overpriced? Yes. Do I think comic book fandom is intimidating? Yes, I get it. I like Comixology a lot. I like the feature of being able to scroll panel to panel. I don't know if Marvel Unlimited's caught up. When I had it, they didn't.
There's a few ways to do it. It's a little janky. Like, you can see the whole page, or you can double tap on a certain. You can't double tap on a certain pane, but if you double tap on the screen, it takes you to the first pane.
Comixology will do panel to panel, like,
and that's how this is.
It'll just be the panel, and then you tap on the right side of the screen, and it swipes to the next panel.
That's how it is. So it zooms in on the first panel, and it's just that one, and then it's like a slideshow.
And then you basically tap the screen to say move forward.
Yeah,
and then it'll progress through the
Except
page.
it does do this thing where it kind of focuses in on the talk bubbles, like the speech bubbles, like
it's your screen of the tablet is whatever the panel happens to be,
right?
Which I think is the proper way to do it. That's what I prefer.
Yeah, it does that.
Okay.
It definitely does that. But there's a feature to where it will navigate you.
So you can choose
right
how specific it is. Okay, but anyway, I just don't have. I mean, I don't have a problem with it in the sense that it doesn't work for me. Like, I wish it could be like more of a Netflix type thing,
right.
but it's all good. But I've gotten that bug too. I haven't acted on it yet because I've been reading Last Shot, the Han Solo Lando novel. I'm about a third of the way.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Comic books are interesting because it's crazy how much they hold up. Yes, there is a line where the artwork can be dated.
I was going to say, do you ever have any desire, like, for example, if you listen to Collider Heroes, the comic run that got Schnepp into comics was 60s Kirby Stanley Fantastic Four.
Yeah, no.
And it's like, that's like me convincing my 21-year-old sister to, like, watch a series of black and white movies. It's like, I'd have zero, based purely on the art and the I don't want to say juvenile, but there's no way that dialogue is, like, modernized.
Right.
It's safe, probably, just way less interesting. It's just I can't do it.
So the line that I draw is early 90s Uncanny X-Men, I think is sort of a lot of the stuff that inspired the cartoon show.
Sure.
That's sort of where I will start from. I won't go any further back than that.
Was that who did X-Men Forever? Was it
Jeff Loeb? I have no idea.
It was who was it? Brubaker, right?
Kevin Marks is like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? How dare you?
Somebody had an extensive Uncanny X-Men run. I don't know if it was Brubaker. I know Brubaker did a lot of Captain America stuff. I can't remember if it was. I'll look it up in the meantime. But
yeah, I've got the bug right now, and I'm going to continue on. I've also read a little bit on Captain Marvel. Not Miss Marvel, but Captain Marvel, the more recent stuff that's been going on with her. But what stopped me from reading any more of that is the fact that I've realized that Captain Marvel is a part of the Ultimates later on in the series, so I was just like, I'll just stick with this. I do want to venture over into Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men. Never been a huge fan of the Spider-Man comic book itself.
Chris Claremont. That's who it is.
Yeah.
Brubaker did do some as well.
That's good.
You want to know who has the worst take in history on Captain Marvel?
I already know. Eric Mulder.
He had some awful takes after Infinity War.
Well, you know what's funny about that whole thing? To not necessarily to give him credit, but I sort of used him in a discussion I was having with somebody on Twitter via some Collider stuff, some Afterthought stuff. It is an important thing to realize. So when you and I or other people in this movie bubble have these really, really hardcore nitpicks, like super nitpicks,
yeah,
it's very annoying. Like, if we're having a conversation about a movie or doing a review and we fall into nitpick territory and we're called on it, like if you call me on nitpicking or I call you on nitpicking, we kind of pump the brakes a little bit. Or do you get that feeling sometimes? You're kind of like, yeah, you're right. But for a majority of the people outside of the bubble, when they have nitpicks, these are their legitimate criticisms.
Right.
And that's important to realize, that we can't just throw away nitpicks like they just aren't an issue.
Well, I would challenge...
But this is the thing with Eric is beyond the nitpick.
I mean, I'm sure that the nitpicks vary, of course, in levels of severity when it comes to the movie or the storytelling capability. So I would challenge anyone to go back and watch any movie review I've ever done on the channel. I will vocally mention my nitpicks, but I will always say, but that's more of a preference thing. I don't think it actually takes away from the quality of the movie, or it's not enough to detract still an A+.
Like subjective
I'm
things.
always doing things like that when I'm speaking or rating a movie. So some of this goes back to, and again, we're talking about Eric Mulder, who is he's been my best friend for years, so this is totally out of love.
If he lived here, he would be more of a contributor to Sight and Sound.
If he lived here, I would have someone to hang out with.
What a fucking loser.
Last time he was here, I asked him to move back. Why? I said, everything you're doing there, you can do here. That's what I said to him. Anyway.
Will you have a hot roommate?
No.
That wouldn't matter regardless, I guess.
I mean, to him, he doesn't now anyway. So
Eric, just make a move.
Only to us.
Just ask. You're both there. If you're both single, it's fine.
So anyway,
she might not be single.
This goes back to when he was here years ago. I remember his first take on Guardians of the Galaxy, because I was like championing that movie. I think I mentioned this on the Me, Myself, and MCU episode I did, where Eric was like, I just don't see the appeal. I don't see the appeal. Became the biggest Marvel movie of all time. Right. And not only that, he enjoyed it after we saw it. I was like...
Does he watch Marvel movies? Like, is that...
Casually.
Okay.
And then when Ant-Man was coming out, I think what bothers me about some of these takes...
I was down on Ant-Man.
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
What bothers me about some of these takes is that I think... He grew up in comic book stores too, so I don't really get where this take comes from, but it's like, if you just told someone, like, this movie Ant-Man's coming out, they have no idea the context or anything like that, then I can get how they might say it's stupid, but it's like, if you grew up in a comic book store, you know what Ant-Man is. Like, yes, it's a ridiculous premise.
Right.
And so he was just like, it just sounds dumb. His superpower is to become small, and it's like, so? Like, in the movie, the character of Scott Lang knows it's a joke. There's a self-awareness. And that's why the costume purposefully looks absurd. Like,
I think the costume's
that
cool.
character, it is cool.
It's one of my favorite costumes.
But it purposefully looks janky. In a way.
Yeah. It's more mechanical than almost any...
Yes.
Yeah.
It looks, next to Iron Man, it looks ridiculous. It looks like somebody sewed it up. It's one of the only superhero costumes in a superhero movie that actually looks like it was sewn up.
Right.
With the exception of the actual Pym particle.
Yeah.
That's science. It just looks... Anyway. So, my frustration with Eric, how small-minded he was, pun intended, with that idea. It's like everybody is in on this joke, and you're just the only one that doesn't get it. And it kept him from seeing the movie. It's like, it doesn't mean that it's a bad movie because you think his superpower is stupid. So we have had a long history of just really, really frustrating Eric Mulder MCU takes. So
and that's interesting. I remember specifically what put me over the edge for Ant-Man. I was pretty off. I'm not gonna say Marvel movies at the time, but I just didn't have like a super big interest. And you know that I'll take in a movie review, even a spoiler review for a movie that I haven't seen. I have no problem doing that for some movies. I remember listening to your Film Beef episode about it, and some of the things that you all were talking about in that review, like was so absurd for things that I even knew of, like going to the quantum realm, and I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck is this? Like, I don't know what this is about. And just the whole premise of it having more of a comedic edge to it, but also having like sort of a heist sort of vibe to it. I stand by this. I think Ant-Man is one of the most original Marvel movies that exists, bar none. I think it's extremely original, and not just because of the premise. That's not even what I mean. The way how clever they utilize his powers, like in the fight scenes. I would have never thought about that. I would have never thought that. Like, instead of dodging punches, they just minimize and get bigger really quick. It's just like so fucking cool.
We see that again with in the Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer.
Yeah.
It looks super cool when they do that, and that's one of the main things. That was one of my main takeaways in my review. It's like, I've just never seen visuals like that.
Right.
So to me, that sort of means everything. It's funny how you and I we can have extremely different viewpoints on MCU movies. 'Cause at the time, I was disinterested in the origin story. When I left that movie, I was like, I even think I made a video and like gave it a C.
Was that more of a commentary on where you stood at the time with being over origin stories?
Sure, it's the fact
we don't get as many origin stories anymore.
Again, because we're getting, and they're sort of doing it again because Ant-Man and the Wasp is right after Infinity War. I get it now, but at the time, it's like we just saw Age of Ultron. We just seen the second Avengers movie. Phase 2 included Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy. It's so expansive, and I was over it. And the fact that the origin story parallels Iron Man so much, and Doctor Strange did that again, it was like origin stories, they're just not the most interesting thing about superhero movies to me anymore. Because they do feel so cookie cutter and familiar. What I love about Guardians of the Galaxy, even though that is an origin story about how that group came together, there's no like learning how to use your powers, like that kind of thing. I think that's what's cookie cutter to me.
Same thing with Black Panther and Spider-Man.
It's just exactly. It's just because I've evolved beyond that to the point where that's not what's interesting. A sequel is always way more interesting to me. If we have to start out with an origin story.
Last thing I want to touch on, and then I want to take a quick break before we break into the rest of the show. One of my favorite things right now that's happening strangely, and I don't know why it's happening now, maybe it's because it's available for rent, is a lot of people who don't watch superhero movies or comic book movies are now watching Logan for the first time.
I haven't picked up on that.
So people, just random casuals, that's what I'm going to call them. Is that a good word? Casual people?
Cash.
Norms.
Normal people.
Norms are coming up to me at work and just random places.
That's what you're talking about?
And they're like,
people.
Well, Josh Glancy, I almost said mutual friend. It's not really the case, is it?
I don't think he likes
somebody.
me.
My friend and somebody you've met a few times came up to me and he was like, man, I just started Logan. It's such a good movie. I'm like, yeah, it's not such a good comic book movie. It's such a great film. Like, that is a film.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't like shit like this normally. This is a really good thing. And I'm like, yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun. So it's cool to see people come around on things. And I think a movie like Logan, and probably even Deadpool to a certain extent, they're gateway movies, man. Like, it's weird to say that. They're kind of gateway movies into this stuff. I mean, for somebody that doesn't like the typical comic book movie, the Marvel films, the DC films. Wait, let me ask you this.
I see what you're saying. At first, I didn't get it, but now I think I'm picking up what you're putting.
Yeah,
down.
like my dad might like Logan.
Right. Because it's the Clint Eastwood man's man movie.
Let me ask you this question: if somebody was like opening the door to comic book movies, and they were like, I used to be like a big Batman, Superman fan. Like, what would you tell somebody that was like, should I watch BVS? Should I watch Suicide Squad? Should I watch Justice League? What would you tell them?
Someone who
this is brand new.
Someone's asking me my take. Someone wants to know if they should start with the DCEU.
I just saw Logan. I really want to explore these other comic book movies. I might check out. You know what? I love Zack Snyder's 300.
What I would say, watch Wonder Woman and
okay, that's a good call.
And Man of Steel. Man of Steel, I think, would work. I think Man of Steel, if you're planning to connect the dots, you start with Logan, and where do you go in the DCEU?
You wouldn't say
Man of Steel would probably be.
You wouldn't tell them, maybe don't go there right away. Maybe go and watch Iron Man 1 or something like that?
Probably.
Okay.
Sure. But or maybe like Wolverine to Blade or something like that. And then like
oh, okay. You're going all the way back to
Blade.
Blade.
if they're starting with something violent, and
Shout
again
out to
we're like
Steven
connecting dots, if they're like, I really am into Wolverine, okay, check out Blade.
Yeah.
And then after Blade, maybe watch Singer's X-Men, and then get to Spider-Man. I'm just trying to connect natural dots. At any point, you could just suggest a good movie, I guess.
Can somebody start out with X-Men First Class?
Sure.
But can you enjoy Days of Future Past without having seen the first 3 Singer X-Men?
A girl that went with me to see Days of Future Past hadn't seen First Class.
Okay.
I think we had watched the first 2 Singer X-Men, and then we watched Days of Future Past in theaters.
Gotcha.
I don't, for some reason, couldn't catch her up all the way, but anyway.
Interesting. Let's take a break real quick. I'm gonna go get a drink.
Good, because this time we're actually gonna hear a word from our sponsor.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Check it out.
You need some new headphones, don't you? Is that a yes? Okay, we'll just let it play.
Whenever I edit and mix the Sight and Sound podcast, I have to listen to it through multiple avenues to make sure it's of the best quality. I listen to them in my car, through my computer speakers, and my quality Kentucky Blue wireless earbuds from our good friends over at Studio. In the description below, follow the link to studio.com and explore the wide assortment of elegant earbuds, on-ears, and even wireless speakers. Studio is offering 15% off for every Sight and Sound listener. All you have to do is use promo code Sight and Sound. That's written out in its entirety, Sight AND Sound, to get 15% off your brand new pair of stylish quality headphones. That's studio.com, promo code Sight AND Sound at checkout. Do it now. Support Studio. Support the show.
I hit record, but it didn't record.
He started talking as if we were recording and we weren't. That's happened twice now. Happened at the very beginning.
That's happened twice now.
Did.
Why did you say it like that? That's happened twice now. How do you feel that Kanye made a Larry David reference in the Travis Scott song that just came out, where he featured on it?
All this Kanye stuff, I think about you.
Old.
I think about you when all this stuff happens. And
what does it say to you that I am now getting sick of it?
Well, before that point, it just bothered me that someone so intelligent,
Yeah,
as yourself,
yeah,
is such a massive fan of someone who's just absurd and annoying. And that's part of the reason why I've never understood. Like, he's interesting. There's no doubt about it. He's interesting, and he's made good songs. But it's like, for people to be so diehard and obsessive, off air, you were going on and on about the things he tweeted. And
So,
I'm thinking to myself, why
does
this fucking matter?
I actually had a take about this, or I thought about this when we were having this interaction. If this was, Ben Affleck
Bradley
talking
Cooper.
about Batman, it would be imperative for me to do our show to keep up with that information because it's such a big news story. It would be something that we would talk about. If he was just like ripping the DCE or ripping Matt Reeves or something like that, like we would be expected to keep up with the knowledge of that.
I think the only reason why it doesn't quite connect there, it's like, but that's something that's just not serious. Whereas like he's making these political stakes and
obviously more
nuts.
more drastic, but like the Harvey Weinstein stuff,
sure,
potentially.
Okay.
Well, I mean, for those that don't, for those that don't know, listen, this is something. I'll just address this here, and then we'll move on from it. But this is something. The Kanye stuff is something that's broken through past music, past pop culture.
Sure.
He's
a Kardashian.
I've now done 2 episodes on talking about this. I'm a music show, and for those that don't listen to the music show, that's totally fine. I get it. My initial stance was that honestly and objectively, whatever was going on, the only information we were being given was via a very limited social media presence, like putting out provocative and provocative tweets about something is a terrible platform to give polarizing opinions on like that. It's just terrible. No context, nothing. I said objectively that is awful and that sucks that this is how it's going down. But I will also give the benefit of the doubt to say I don't know what he means by any of this. He's a fucking wacko.
Yeah.
However, second week, more context came out, and I fucking ripped him this past week on the music show. I thought the absolute horseshit garbage trash that came out of his mouth on TMZ was repugnant. It was awful. I mean, to suggest that slavery was a choice, regardless, to give him benefit of the doubt on what it means, he didn't provide context, so that's on him. And stuff like that, whatever you mean by it, should never, ever, ever be uttered out of your mouth. Like, it's gross, and whatever backlash he's getting for it. I love Kanye West. I love him. I think
his poster's sitting right behind.
That's right. He's an inspiration to me and to a lot of other people, which is why he deserves to be called a fucking idiot right now for saying the things that he's saying. Hopefully he comes around and hopefully he opens his eyes and wakes up. But, the political stuff is nor here nor there in the sense where it's like, if you followed along with the story at all, you will quickly realize that he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah.
Have you ever?
Yeah.
Have you ever I put this illustration out on my music show, but have you ever gotten into a conversation or a debate with somebody? And we like debate. We like debating about pop culture. And you get into it. Let's say it's about comic book movies. Somebody, hey man, let's talk about an Infinity War. Okay, cool. Let's talk about it. And you start that conversation, and you realize, oh no, you don't know what you're talking about. You haven't, like, we can't have this conversation because you,
Eric and Ant-Man.
Yeah, you legitimately don't have a take because you don't have the information. Yeah, that's how that was, and that's how people are right now with him and his political stuff. They're like, dude, you are such an influential figure that you are talking about things that you don't even know. So
that's why I was really appreciative of the guy who that must have been I just think about the surface level of that.
Yeah.
How Kanye West walks into your office,
Dude.
and you are so confident in addressing and confronting him when you were just a complete nobody. Like, that entire idea, not only did it work out because that gentleman is so well spoken and delivered his point so well, it's just crazy that he even did it to begin with. It's awesome.
What's even more great about that, I've been following along with this closely just because I give these opinions and stuff on music, but when that whole TMZ thing came out, and I talked about this on Afterthoughts, but weirdly enough, I went to that TMZ article where it had the whole interview with him doing whatever he was doing. And then below that, this guy has a podcast, and they linked to his podcast, but the podcast was from like a few days before, I believe. And he was talking about Kanye West, about how much Kanye had inspired him and influenced him, but he's now going in the opposite direction. Doing that podcast legitimately prepared him for this interaction.
Right.
Did you know that guy went on The Ringer?
Really?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know. What show?
He was on a Channel 33 podcast. I don't know the name of the show, but they interviewed him and pretty much went through the entire play-by-play of how everything went down.
God, that's awesome.
Fascinating. So if you guys, I'll give a quick rundown. Basically, they every day when they go in, I didn't know this. I don't know why I wouldn't know this. I don't really watch TMZ, but the TMZ TV show that they do, like that goes out on TV, it's filmed.
Are you talking into your mic?
Yeah, I am.
What weird angle are you sitting at?
Sorry, I don't know why. I don't know why I'm doing that. They filmed that show, the TV show, at super early in the morning at like 6 a.m., like when people come into the office. And then after that, they do their TMZ Live, which is like stream live from their offices. He said that they did the show, the TV show, and then they stopped, they braked so that they could get coffee and breakfast. And Harvey, the owner of TMZ, was like, just so you guys know, on TMZ Live today, Kanye West is coming in. And everybody was like, holy shit. And he was bringing in, what's her name, that one girl who's the black woman who's also a Republican and called the Black Lives Matter movement whiners or whatever that woman's name is. And so he was like, that's fucking crazy. Goes to the kitchen to get oatmeal, comes back in, and Kanye West is like standing in front of him. And he had no intentions at the time of really doing anything or saying anything, but once he said the thing about slavery seeming like a choice, he just was like, no, this isn't happening. So
it's absurd.
Yeah, shout out to that guy. I forget his last name, but his first name is Van. He has a podcast. It's on SoundCloud and stuff. So if you guys want to check that out. Anyways, I'll tell you what I kind of did need in the current landscape of popular music right now, because it is so overtaken by this Kanye stuff, is just a throwaway, like really easy listening album, like this Post Malone album.
Yeah.
This Post Malone album, it came out last week. We're talking about it this week because we did an after party last week, but also because this news came out that 4 days after the album came out, it was certified platinum, a platinum album. I talked about the business of how all that goes down, how that can even be on music, but I didn't really talk about this album. More than anything, I wanted to get your take, because if people are living under a rock or they just don't know, Post Malone creates a very interesting style of music. It's not really rap. It's not really R&B.
I don't think it's rap in any way. At least this album.
Yeah,
not that he hasn't done it.
Some people think that just because he's borrowing ideas of rap and hip instrumentals, like the trap beats that he uses and he sings over, and just because he has like a certain cadence about his vocals.
I was going to say, you can label this kind of stuff better than I can. What is this genre? What is he doing?
To me, it's pop music. I know we've talked about that before.
But is it trap as well?
So the beats are without a doubt trap beats.
Yeah.
They are, not only are they trap beats, but they're also like the most basic cookie cutter, simple,
Right.
throwaway
Yeah.
trap beats that exist. Yeah.
Sure.
But the other thing too is that I think it's weird to call him a rapper because the lines of what is rap music is being blurred today.
Yeah, but he's just not rapping. I mean, that's
Exactly.
That's just the truth.
Exactly.
He's
100%.
not rapping.
I agree with you 100%.
So, and again, the beer bongs and Bentleys. It's
Beer Bongs and Bentleys, one of the worst album covers I've ever seen. The album cover is a picture of his CD, like a jewel case,
Right.
which is
and he stole the color scheme from Under Oath.
kind of, yeah. This is a guy that knows about Under Oath.
Oh, really?
This is a 23-year-old
I didn't realize he was that young.
millionaire.
If he can do it, anybody can do it.
Absolutely. I agree.
How disrespectful
No,
is that
listen,
to his art?
I actually have a tremendous amount of respect for Post Malone. I just watched a Vice documentary about him, sort of in preparation for this. And this is a guy who, I'm not going to necessarily say worked like super hard, crazy, hustled or whatever, but this is a guy who wrote a really, really, really good fucking song called White Iverson. Have you heard that song before?
Yeah.
Okay. A massive hit, released on SoundCloud, essentially got signed off of this song. And the industry got a hold of him and sort of injected a bunch of stuff into him, whether it be partnering him up with songwriters, producers, and this and that. And I haven't seen the album credits, but I do know that the industry gives him songwriters and beat makers and this and that.
Right.
I wanted to know your take on this because I think it registers on the algorithm for the sole fact that it's catchy as hell, or it can be catchy as hell. Yeah. What did you think about this thing?
So overall, my thoughts are this music is not dynamic in any way. Like, from song to song, there's just so little change up. The first 4 or 5 songs play out in this album, and I didn't know where one song ends and where a new song begins.
Right.
I just sort of get lost in it. And it's easy to... Part of that album, the beginning of that album, I was listening to it in the car, driving somewhere.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting hooked. Like, I was fine with the music. I don't think it's bad. But because it was so monotonous,
Right.
I was I was losing it. Like, you know how you listen to podcasts sometimes and then you think, I don't know what I've just heard the past 10 minutes? That's what had happened. It was almost just a podcast,
right?
And I hadn't heard the last 10 minutes of it because I was off in another world. Sorry, I just hit my mic.
You said off in another world.
Right. That was pretty clever. Anyway, so there are certainly catchy parts, and this is something, like you said, it is like an easy listening thing. So maybe I might have been expecting something a little bit more upbeat and like sort of more banger kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But because again, right now I'm like really into Logic and things like that.
You're expecting it to be more lit.
Yeah. And
right.
it's certainly not that.
It's more sing-songy.
I didn't really connect
chorus.
until the song Over Now, which is like what, 7 of 18 or something like that.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of that. Yeah.
So look, it's not necessarily a problem I have with Post Malone in general. I think when I hear music like this, the main vocal is kind of annoying because you're not doing a whole. It's 10 lines of the exact same cadence
melody,
and it's a rhyme scheme of a,
which is borrowed from popular trap music right now.
It's just in its simplest form. Like, that's not interesting. Every word rhymes. Every single thing has a cadence.
Right.
The music is barely changing. It's just not. While I don't think it's bad, it's just not necessarily what I'm looking for.
So can I tell you what it does play to, though?
Oh, yeah.
It plays to casual radio play. Because something like that on in the background in a Dollar General over and over and over again, it's going to get stuck in your head. And
that would not play in the radio station that we listen to. Because I was actually going to come, because there are a lot of popular artists that we talk about. Like, some of the biggest artists don't actually get a whole lot of radio play.
Right.
That we talk about on here. So
maybe it depends on what you're listening to. I mean, Post Malone is a top. He had
I know.
The number one song.
Oh, you don't have to tell me that. Yeah. I'm just saying. I was thinking about how popular of an artist he is because of this story that his album went platinum so quickly.
Right.
And I was thinking about
fourth in the world right now.
I was thinking about how the very few times that I hear the radio, music doesn't sound like that. It's the Bruno Mars that I hear a lot on the radio. It's that Kelly Clarkson song, "Love So Soft," that kind of stuff.
Which is interesting to touch on that for a second. So radio is aware of who its audience is, and it has just as much of a, it needs to stake its claim for older audiences who maybe aren't as tuned in to streaming culture, whereas music like Post Malone or the different genres that he borrows from, hip hop, trap, and etc., the most popular music period is primarily streamed, right? So that's where a lot of that stuff comes from. It's not. You're right. It's not on the radio as much.
I was gonna say I would agree.
This is where that crosses over, though.
I would agree. It's radio friendly.
Right.
I don't hear radio hits when I hear this album.
Wow, that's a bold statement. Just because
it's just not what I hear on the radio. But I also don't listen to the radio.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would say all of these songs are written from one point or another to be played not just on the radio, but on multiple different types of stations. There's songs on this album that I could see easily being pushed into country music stations without a doubt. There is a acoustic guitar ballad on here. He's also made it very public that he is hugely inspired and influenced by Garth Brooks, and that crosses over into his music.
Well, let me be perfectly clear.
Yeah.
Because, again, all of my music is streamed on Spotify. I choose every single thing I listen to when I'm at work, and we don't even play the radio anymore. But if the radio is on at work, I can't really explain my radio station.
I understand.
To anybody who doesn't live in my area.
Might even be more like adult contemporary type of radio.
So to you, it's 103.7, which plays.
I don't even know what station. I don't even know what they play on that station anymore.
Well, it's like the Bruno Mars and the Kelly Clarkson and Taylor Swift. I mean, it is the
Top
biggest
pop.
artist, but all of those artists don't write songs like what I'm hearing from this
singing
Post
about
Malone.
Drinking codeine.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. It's that Post Malone, to me, did not write any songs that could be accompanied by this one radio station that I hear in such a very small, limited amount of my entire life.
That makes sense. Sometimes I wonder if it is subject matter. Sometimes that keeps it from stations like that. I don't know. That's really nor here nor there.
Maybe I don't know what the radio is even anymore because I don't even need that function in my car.
Yeah, and honestly, nobody really does. But anyways, this album, people may be confused why I'm as positive on this as I am, because I gave a pretty intense take on this when I talked about it on the music show. Of course, that was a first impression, but nothing much has changed. I think as an album, as an actual album, which that's what I like, that's what I review. I do talk about singles, but I'm looking for the movie. You know what I'm saying? The movie from bands, from artists, and this and that. I want the album. I want to explore the story. This album is awful. It's fucking terrible. It starts with the fact that it's 18 tracks.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost an hour and 20 minutes long, which is unforgivable. And the sequencing of the album is atrocious. I don't know why the first song is the first song. I don't know why the last song is the last song.
Yeah.
I don't know why the 6th, 12th, 4th songs exist as they do. There, like you said, there is no journey with this album.
Is it a playlist?
We'll get to that in a second. So there is no journey on this album. It's 18 of the same approach of songs. Yeah, they can vary in style a little bit, but every song is written to be a banger. And just because a song is when I say banger, I'm not talking about a good song, because you can have a song that's not a banger that's a good song, right? I mean, there are songs that are, I don't know, just like really expansive that can still be great songs and not bangers. This project has incredible songs on it, really well-written songs, incredible moments. The song that you would, and that's the shame of this album not being great to listen to from front to back, is that, what's the song that you said?
Over Now.
That song in particular is actually a pretty original song, in my opinion.
I like it a lot.
It has the pop elements, it has the trap elements, it has, I guess alternative R&B elements, but also has like a rock vibe too that I haven't really heard people touch on. It sounds like, if, I know this might be a weird sort of connection, it reminds me of like if Drake and Travis Scott made a song with Linkin Park and A Day to Remember.
I was gonna say, if it just felt like there was a little bit more grit to it.
Yeah.
Like that song just has more
Energy.
character. That song just has more character than anything I had heard prior to that.
Absolutely. And what's sad is that there are songs like this, or songs like Psycho, which is a huge smash hit on this album, and a few others that exist, like some acoustic songs and some ballads, that just get lost in the mix with the rest of this, and it's just a bummer that it couldn't have the focus on it. But it's albums like this from Post Malone that are this successful that need to exist for him to be more expansive and more artistic, I think, because this is his second commercial album, and his first one hit. It was a big hit, but it didn't hit like this quick. Let's talk about what you touched on about it being a playlist, because this is what I really talked about on the music episode, and I guess I just want your opinion. We've talked a little bit about music right now being a singles culture, it being single driven. A lot of artists are primarily focused on releasing a lot of singles. If you go on Spotify, I mean, there are artists that exist out there that don't have albums, they just have singles. Do you know this?
Sure.
Like the band Aquilo, who's a band not a lot of people will know about, but they're big on Spotify because their music, the music that they make, gets put on a lot of playlists, and people listen to those playlists.
I was gonna say, I mean, I think just seeing Josh and Mary Beth, my friends in Nashville, navigate that space, and because of the way Spotify is nowadays,
right,
I've seen single culture
come
to fruition, because it's primarily due to the fact that, again, people who are starting out, they don't have to. Going back to what we talked about with Brando when he was here, it's like the way that you would start a band right now is not at all the same way that you start a band when we did like 10 years ago, because single culture is now you can just get your music distributed on Spotify without anybody's fucking help. So you do it yourself all the time with Separator and yeah, that's just all it takes. So it's we're in a single culture right now.
So we are in a single culture, but the idea that I was exploring on the music show is that I think the music industry has figured something interesting out, that even though a lot of artists are wanting to make these singles and these singles hit, people, the experience, there are a lot of people out there that want a set it and forget it experience. They don't want to scroll through and find the next album. They don't want to scroll through and find the next song.
Plug your phone up at a party, set it down on the counter, let it go.
Exactly. The set it and forget it mindset. That's why Rap Caviar is such a huge playlist on Spotify. That's why these pre-made playlists are so big on Spotify. And it's huge business to get one of those singles on a playlist. And I get it. I'm like that. When I'm at work, I don't want to be fucking looking through whatever next album I want to listen to. Sometimes I just put it on my album of the year playlist, or one of those daily mixes or whatever that Spotify makes you.
They play the same songs for me over and over.
They really do. They need to work on that. Like, they need to figure that out. I agree 100%. But this new thing that they're figuring out, much to the detriment of me, because I still love a good album, we're seeing a lot of artists put out these super fucking long albums. We had Migos Culture 2, which was 2 hours long. This Post Malone album, and Ray Sremmurd just released their album, which Ray Sremmurd is 2 guys that make similar music to Post Malone, rap, pop, trap, whatever. So they put out their 9-track album, but both of those guys also released solo albums, but they packaged it all as one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 2-hour long project to listen to. And it's just like, what are we doing here? But it's big business. I mean, people are like, okay, I'm just going to hit shuffle on this and let it play all day. So I might not like it, but I understand.
It's just funny how I feel like that's the reverse of how we got to where we are in music in the first place.
Right.
For example, when I was a kid and I was into NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears CD, I might have been a fan of Britney Spears because I knew of that one album, and I would buy that entire album for $13 just to hear one song on demand. That went away with iTunes and Napster. It was just long gone were the days where we had to deal with that because people were only really interested in the one song and buying those one particular songs. So it's funny how it's now not everybody's doing it, but there are still popular artists that are doing the exact opposite of that. Whereas, like, it's just interesting to me that there are some artists that'll just put out maybe like 5 to... I think Our Last Night does that a little bit.
Yeah.
Our Last Night's put out several EPs so far. It's something that Brave the Storm is exploring right now, whereas like we at first set out to do a full length, but now we're just talking about doing like 2 4-song EPs.
Yeah.
Just because of where we are with music. And he did the exact opposite with this album.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. The whole thing is fascinating. I've even thought about like what business, maybe not business, what sort of engagement I could have with our audience with playlists and stuff. I've been guilty of putting together playlists for audiences in the past with other podcasts and this and that were just too diverse. Like 1 minute I'd be like, this is a great metal song. And the next it's like, this is a great singer-songwriter song. If people are interested in like me putting together, if you want my like top 10 banger metal songs right now or my top 10 banger rap songs right now, I guess let me know. I think could be some interaction with that with YouTube music videos too. Just being like, let's put together a music video playlist for people.
Yeah, I could definitely. Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I thought it was interesting. I will be doing a review for this Post Malone.
That's probably the
album
better
soon.
way because at least a lot of our listeners in the Facebook group use different streaming services.
That's true. Yeah, fair enough. I will be doing a review for this Post Malone album. Look for it this week on the YouTube channel. Do you want to? I mean, I don't even know if you've listened to the whole thing, but I mean, what do you feel in your gut, grade-wise?
I mean, it's like I said, it's not bad. I don't have anything against it, other than it's just like not my preference hardly ever.
Right.
I mean, it's just kind of. I mean, I would just be like at a B- or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of like I'm fine with it, and I might get a few. I've listened to like 2/3 of it.
Yeah.
It's like there are a couple songs I can pull from this and enjoy, but it's not gonna be sustaining to me.
Lyrical content could use some work. There's one song where he talks about a girl's beautiful boobies. That's what he says, beautiful boobies in a song. You can't do that with me. You can't talk about
not even
boobies.
on this episode of the podcast where we want to be more racy and unforgiving.
I mean, I can use the word boobies just talking, but if you're trying to if you're trying to pitch me a song, I mean, you could say titties, you could say a plethora of other breasts, you could say a plethora of other things, but beautiful boobies.
I just
something.
I just don't want to look at them.
Yeah,
I just do not like looking at Post Malone.
Apparently, he was into like metalcore and stuff.
That's fine. I just
Before-
don't like looking at him.
Luke's gonna be like, well, actually, he tried out for this band. We know. I've heard this before. There's a picture of him wearing a Day to Remember shirt. He went to emo night in L.A. and was singing My Chemical Romance.
If he can do it, anybody can.
I agree. In fact, I just worked on a song for my mixtape today. It's not my greatest. Do you want to take a break, or do you want to move on into the next topic?
I don't need a break.
All right, hit me. What are we talking about?
I do want to have like a little walk down memory
right
lane.
over there, you have a seizure?
No, I was just scratching my eye. I want to have a walk down memory lane a little bit. I want to talk about Arrested Development.
Why?
Because this show is so fascinating. What I love
It's
about
my
this,
top 5 shows of all time.
Eric has a dong take on
Maybe
Arrested Development
top 10
too, by the way.
What the fuck is wrong with Eric?
Watched 3 episodes, never laughed once.
You know what? I agree, especially with season 4 remix.
We'll get there. Do you just remember, do you remember where you were when you first saw that show or heard about that show?
I remember seeing commercials for the show when I was like too young to really not too young, like I was a child,
So,
but I was just kind of like, I don't get this.
It was when it was on air, and so it would have been like a 2003, 2004. So this was an interesting transition time for me because it took me a while to get into television because, and there was this weird transition. I think part of this too is because I went to private school. I probably watched Nickelodeon a little too long, whereas like people
you were a latent what's the word for that? You
just a late bloomer.
Yeah.
But it's like more.
You didn't sell your stock on Nickelodeon.
As we got older, a lot of the people around me were getting more into sports, so they like dropped the cartoons to watch ESPN. Not that I mean, I still watch Dragon Ball Z. I watched Dragon Ball Z like 5th and 6th grade, or
shout out to Piccolo.
Maybe a little MTV stuff or ABC Family, but it was like I was still watching younger focused content.
Right.
And so I remember being at my dad's one night, and I was watching God knows what, and I saw a TV spot for Arrested Development.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing all the characters vividly, and they're, being, what it is.
It's name of a hip hop group too. Do you know that?
Huh?
Arrested Development is the name of an older hip hop group as well.
Oh, okay.
Have a great song called Tennessee.
I remember seeing the TV spot and finding it so striking because I didn't know TV could look like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was groundbreaking in that sense. And because especially at the time, but I think a lot of people just skipped because that show was mistreated in a lot of ways.
Had British Office existed at that period?
It would have had to have been about the same time.
Because I feel like one or the other was influenced by.
But even that, it's like I didn't even know Brit Office existed until American Office did.
Right.
And then it says in the opening credits, inspired by executive produced Ricky Gervais, inspired by the British television series, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, okay. You put 2 and 2 together. Right. I've still never seen an episode of the British Office, to my knowledge. But point is, I saw that TV spot and thought, I didn't realize TV looked like that. I just didn't know what it was. You know what I mean? It was like, I made that stupid comparison of when Native Americans saw Columbus's ships for the first time. It's like, what the fuck is that? How is your brain comprehending that?
When you watched Arrested Development for the first time, did you bring it a fish?
It was years later. So it wasn't until I was in high school, probably sophomore, junior year, I was really connecting with Cody Hecker at the time. And Cody's older brother, so someone who was like 3 or 4 years.
That is the most Cody Hecker thing to. Obviously, if it wasn't Cody Hecker, I get it, but that is the most quintessential thing to be associated with Cody Ray Hecker. Something Cody Ray Hecker introduced me to the office or to Arrested Development. Yeah.
So Cody's older brother, so someone with an older sensibility for watching TV, got him into Arrested Development, and Cody happened to mention it. And it was maybe like several months after that where I noticed that it was on. I don't remember how I watched it. I might have. No, you know what? I bought the DVDs on Amazon.
I used to rent them from Blockbuster.
I I first bought the DVDs on Amazon, and it was love at first sight.
Yeah, it's a great show.
So when I discovered that show, it had already been off the air for several years, and there are people. We have an international fan base.
Yes.
So if you don't know, Arrested Development sort of started the single cam sitcom in America. What The Office came to be, what Parks and Rec came to be. Arrested Development started that, and it was on Fox, and it was at a particular time in television where I think everybody wasn't getting it. And so that show survived probably longer than it expected. I think from season to season, they were wondering if it was going to get, because people just were not watching it. Because
they kept moving it around. There was one year where they put it right up against like the Olympics or something like that. Yeah.
Right. And this is also probably about the time American Idol became a thing on Fox as well. So
yeah,
I'm wondering I'm wondering if that had a little bit to do with it too, if it was before or after that, and maybe or maybe it was on a Sunday night or something. And
narrated by Ron Howard.
Right. So the show was mistreated in a sense that it was probably the smartest thing on television, yet nobody was watching it at the time. And it's the absurdity. It's the fact that the comedy in it is literally the most intelligent comedy I have ever seen on television, period.
There are jokes in that show that are... So watching Arrested Development for the first time all the way through isn't enough. It is a show that demands you to rewatch it because of jokes that are planted in the show and the background, this and that, but also setup of jokes that happen in season 1 that happen in season 2 that you can't actually get unless you rewatch the show.
I know. It's like, so a joke setup may happen in season 2, episode 3, and that joke's payoff is season 2, episode 20, or in the finale.
Which is something that we
absurd.
love. It's something we love about Parks and Rec. Did the exact same thing. Similar, at least.
Similarly,
yeah.
But
more with characters.
Arrested Development was more intricate.
Absolutely.
And more complex because the narrative, it was non-linear as well.
Right.
Like, it was a very dense, complicated show with such intelligent material. It was just so mind-blowing when I first got that show.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, what a hell of a time when I was watching Office, Parks and Rec, and this at the same time in Community. It was just a really fun time to get all of that at once. But
I watched this at the same time that I watched Arrested Development, Lost, and Breaking Bad in like the exact same time.
It's great.
Yeah, it was. I mean, talk about
all
peak
all
TV.
3 totally different shows.
Well,
too.
yeah, of course.
And the best in.
I think
genre.
I watched Dexter and 6 Feet Under too. I was just
really?
on like a TV bender.
You were just on that Michael C. Hall.
I was. Yeah.
Is he prominent?
Michael
on
C. Hall killing. Yeah, he's a huge character.
He's like the brother to the main character, right, or something like that.
There's no main character. There's the family.
I thought what's his name was the main character.
No, that one
Peter
guy.
Or whatever his name is.
He's the focal point of the show in terms of like
Peter Krause, is that his name?
I can't remember. He's the main character, like Michael Bluth is the main character of Arrested Development. Like the cast is.
Well, I would say that.
Right, but it's more so just things hinge on him. But yeah, Michael C. Hall's character.
Ensemble.
Michael C. Hall's character is a huge part.
Would you
show.
say Jack is the main character of Lost?
I would say that the show hinges on Jack, but I wouldn't.
Well, I would say both.
Yeah, I mean, it's a type. These are all types of shows where that definition is hazy.
Sure.
He's not the main character. Like
It's an ensemble.
Yeah, like
It's an
Dexter
ensemble.
is the main character in Dexter.
Is Wolverine the main character in X-Men? Well, no, it's an ensemble. But so anyway, this show was mistreated because nobody knew what it was at the time. Nobody was watching it. It survived as long as it could, and then it went away for 7 years, I think. And it wasn't until Netflix was like, "Hey, we're gonna bring back a lot of this a lot of TV that was underappreciated at the time and give it another pair of legs.
Early era Netflix,
Yes.
when no one was quite sure how this was going to work.
So
like Arrested Development coming back was a
Yes.
huge announcement
Oh my
for Netflix.
God.
It was
So-
really big.
Again, think about it. Cody had got me into the show, so a lot of people, Arrested Development, again, became really big to people in college, even though
Yeah.
the show wasn't on. Those DVDs were going around. It was like a very cult type of show after it was off the air.
Like drugs.
And, okay, sure. People would get on drugs to watch Arrested Development. So,
Like German Shiza porn.
so it had a life outside of being on in prime time, and people were begging for the show to come back, and that's why Netflix brilliantly did. So it was a big deal. The people that I had gotten into Arrested Development, we had a viewing party when that thing debuted in 2013.
Ugh.
And season 4 of Arrested Development might have been one of the most disappointing things that
Yeah.
I have seen when you consider the amount of love and passion and then the reward of here's some more because we're the company that's going to save it and we're the company that's going to treat it right.
Right.
Um,
Well, let's. I'm in agreement with you that it was certainly a disappointing season just because the hype, I think, that was around it and the build-up and how long it had been. Looking back on season 4, watching it, season 4 proper, I didn't think it was terrible. I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was an atrocity to television. But I thought it was extremely forgettable. It didn't have that lasting impression that I remember from Arrested Development seasons past. I just was watching it and I was just like, it felt more like a special. Does that make sense? The season felt more like the Sense8 Christmas special or something like that.
So you guys have to remember seasons 1 through 3 were like the 22 episodes. It was a Fox show,
Yeah.
and it was 22 episodes. Netflix brought it back, and I think it ended up being like 13 or 14.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crazy how that short of a season felt longer than the 22 episodes.
Yeah.
Because season 4 was a chore to get
It was a
through.
drag.
Not only was it, they experimented with the durations a little bit. So as opposed to the 22 minutes, they were able to go to 30 if they wanted to.
Right.
And when they did that, I remember thinking, this is taking forever. Because Arrested Development, it's
Super quick.
it's junk food. It's just like, here's a ton of stuff crammed together in one. I mean, I guess sitcoms in general are like that.
And they have fun with it. They have fun
Yes.
with how quick the pacing is
But
of the
it's
show.
but it's just like a well-written song, you know what I mean? It gets in and gets out, and it's got that rhythm to it, and when it's time to go, it's the perfect amount.
Right.
And it's a dose. And it's perfectly paced in that way. As a lot of great shows are.
Can I throw one thing out here real quick? And I didn't, so I know we're going to get into discussing the remix season and what that entails and the differences and this and that. But I remember watching this fourth season and thinking that certain things just felt off about it, like beyond the narrative and just how legitimately different it was, how they were telling the story. But other things just felt very off about the season. And I remembered when I was rewatching the first episode, what one of those things was. What's his name? Fonzie.
Henry Winkler.
Henry Winkler in the premiere episode appears in one of the scenes and he's green screened in to the shot. And it's so... And
yes,
I wish they would have made a joke about it, but they didn't.
They do later with George.
They do that? Okay. Well, that's good. But at the time, I was just like...
So, here's what you have to consider. So, when Season 4 came together, what Mitch Hurwitz, the showrunner, was faced with was everybody, since this show's inception, since it went off air, every single person that was a part of this show blew up, and their careers became astronomical. You have Will Arnett, who's fucking Lego Batman. You have Jason Bateman, who's just Jason Bateman, a household name. You have Michael Cera blowing up. Like, everybody just became the biggest deal elsewhere. So it was a massive chore to bring all of these personalities together for what might be like a fan service season. Like,
Yeah.
I think they tried
getting the band back together.
They tried the best they could to get the band back together. And part of that, they had to design the show and format completely different. And that's why season 4 is so much different.
Right.
Because they didn't have everybody there. And so they had to be very specific with the scheduling. And each cast member could only film, I think there's only like 2 scenes where all of the cast was together. And they probably filmed 8 versions of it. That way they could stretch it out through all those episodes.
Right.
It takes place in the condo, their house where they all live. They have one big family moment, and it's stretched out throughout the entire season. But it was a lot to deal with. So they decided to show where all of these characters were in their lives at this particular point. And each episode focused on one particular character. So not only do we have a completely different format, but we have an ensemble show, one of the greatest ensembles of all time, and none of those characters are interacting with each other.
Right.
For this new season. And that was part of it, because there were so many episodes of characters that I love when they're with. I love Tobias when he's interacting with everybody else.
Right.
I did not at all want to watch a Lindsay and Tobias episode.
Yeah.
And I learned that the hard way watching that first season. It just does not work the same.
Let me ask you this question. Because Netflix would go on to become what it is now with all the money, this is kind of a rhetorical question because I know the answer. Do you think if Netflix said to themselves, regardless of, I think there are some times that Netflix pulls the fan trigger because they're a big enough company to do that. Like
Fuller House.
Yeah, exactly.
Their biggest show.
Exactly. And, well, not even for fans. I mean, for them. Like, we believe in this. We are fans of this. We're going to make this happen.
Yeah.
Do you think now Netflix has the amount of money to be like, oh, you guys, you're going to be on set because we're going to make it worth your while. Here's a check that's going to make sure that you guys are fucking filming all this stuff together. Because Netflix is bigger than any, with the exception of Game of Thrones, probably any show that somebody else could be booked for. I'm not saying Arrested Development is. I'm saying Netflix is bigger than any show somebody else could be booked for.
Well, I think it's interesting because, and again, the main reason we're talking about Arrested Development is because season 4 across the board was essentially a failure. And even if people liked it, I don't think it's lasting because
yeah, for sure.
the heat on are we going to get a season 5 is not the same as people who wanted that 4th season before they knew we were going to get it. So that's interesting how the tide turned that way.
Rewatching season 4 was the best I could give it was things were familiar. Does that make sense?
Like, I kind of remembered seeing that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So to answer your question, ultimately, I think since season 4, like whatever David Cross was doing has died down a little bit. It's interesting that
the heat on Michael Cera way down.
Heat on Michael Cera is way down. Jason Bateman has an existing partnership with Netflix already with Ozark.
That's right.
Because he's the writer and producer and star of that show.
Very successful
and even director of that show. And so I think that is to their benefit. I think Jason Bateman has a deal with Netflix to where they are cooperating more so with each other. So it's interesting too because Jeffrey Tambor, who plays George, he's under all those sexual allegations. He was one of the first people that was under fire at last fall when all this shit was coming out. So it's interesting to me that Netflix kept him on board for this upcoming season 5. So I do think Netflix has a little bit of fuck you money in that way. Like, yeah, we're gonna get this done. And to bring it back to why we're talking about it today, it's that all of this news just came out of nowhere this week. And we've had a lot of conversations about how hilarious it is that Netflix just drops things without any promotional material at all. It's funny that even something as big of a property as Arrested Development, you can do it with Atypical all you want. You can do it with the first season of 13 Reasons Why all you want before all the hype. But for Arrested Development season 4 remix to just get dropped yesterday, we're recording this on Saturday, blows my mind. And it's
a surprise album.
And it blows my mind that season 5 is just around the corner, probably later this month, early summer is when everybody's expecting it, even though no date has been set yet. It's just crazy to me how all of this was filmed without us knowing.
Does it scare you, though?
The fuck you money goes into, not only did they do an entire season, but they paid Mitch Hurwitz to completely sit down and redesign season 4. And the reason why I love this idea is because it's totally unprecedented in television.
Yeah.
And that's just what Arrested Development is all about. It's just unprecedented. It's revival. It's cool and great in that way, and it means a lot to television in that way, because not every show can do what this thing is.
Absolutely. It's Kanye West fixing wolves. When he put out The Life of Pablo, he just started changing everything. He was just like, oh, it's out, but I'm going to add a song. I'm going to take a part out and insert this verse. I'm going to rearrange the track listing. I think things like that are cool. I love living, breathing art in that regard. And you're right, it doesn't happen a lot. Yeah, you'll get some things sometimes where maybe if you're watching, I remember there were shows that were on network TV where you'd get a part 1 and a part 2 and like a full thing. I believe there were some lost episodes that played out in like a 2-hour long event from time to time. But if you went back and watched it on Netflix or DVD, it'd be broken up in a part 1 and a part 2, things like that, but nothing like this specifically. The experience of watching it was interesting. It was fascinating for me, and I guess we'll talk about this. I found it to be, it played out way better than watching the original. The pacing was 10 times better. I found myself going from episode to episode effortlessly, as opposed to being like, okay,
how many episodes did you watch?
I think 5 or 6.
Same.
Yeah, and they seem to go one into each other seamlessly.
You just finished watching Lindsay dating the guy who can't see faces? Is that where you're at?
No.
Did you get that far?
No, I think maybe I just finished. Maybe I'm not as far. You
got to be like on 4.
I just finished the one where Tobias and Lindsay went to India or whatever.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I thought the pacing was much better. I think the thing that I'm realizing now after doing the first run is that I don't know if the writing was the greatest. Like, the jokes don't hit with me as well.
This was always the case, and it still is with the recut, is season 4 is just the least laugh out loud season
for sure
that exists for this show. So they took a 13 episode or whatever it was, 14 episode season 4, and they turned it into the traditional 22, which is crazy. And all of them are 22 minutes, to my knowledge, the way that it should be. And I think that when you hear how crazy it is that they're remixing all of it, and because you're so unsure about what that's going to be like, I think that it's a tremendous feat that they have seemed to pull it off. Characters, based on the design of the episodes, seem to be together more. Obviously, they're just changing existing material around. They weren't able to add scenes with the characters. It just feels like it makes more sense in that way. And so when it comes to Project Remix Season 4, so far from what I've seen, they totally pull it off. You don't laugh out loud as much because that's just part of the material, and that was always the case. But I am 100% satisfied with what I've seen so far, and I think it's I think it's more of the season 4 that we deserved.
Yeah.
And it makes the entire series feel way more cohesive in that way.
Absolutely. So I concede the point that the show works better and it flows a lot better than it did previously. I just found myself, I don't know, just tuned out a little bit. And I touched on it already, just the writing in general, maybe just not being as good. Like you said, it just didn't have the laughs that the other seasons had. But this is a show much like The Office, even towards the end when I didn't like The Office. There's nothing this show could probably ever do to where I'd just be like, I'm totally off board with it. I will always be stoked, or I will always give the benefit of the doubt or just the chance to any new Arrested Development season.
It's still, the intelligence is still there. Like,
absolutely.
Even the way
it's still what they're trying to do, what they're attempting to do is better than most television.
The problem with season 4 in general, season 4 itself was ambitious because the show was always ambitious, and it was if anything, telling one character story per episode made it more complex because there were, again, those things that you would see in episode 3 and it wouldn't pop up from the other person's perspective. And then all of these shows come, like in the way that Seinfeld has 3 different storylines that come together at the end for one big punchline, Arrested Development does that for an entire season,
right? Which
is incredible. And it was ambitious. It just wasn't funny. It was sluggish, and it did not amount to what everyone fell in love with, and it did not exceed expectation, which tells me that they listened to the fans. Not only did they put in the crazy amount of time and effort to recut season 4, it gives me all the hope in the world for this upcoming season 5 because they learned from their mistakes this time around, and it just makes me feel a whole lot better about it.
That's what I will give the remix season is you can't change what's already been written, what's already been filmed, but what it tells me is that the people creating the show, and yes, I did get it just from recutting the show, that they still know what we want, and they still know what Arrested Development should feel like, because it does. It feels like season 3 continued and it's season 4. Prior to that, like I've already said, the first time we got it, it felt like something different.
Yeah.
Still similar, but just something a little bit different.
Can you guess who my favorite character is?
Joe, of course.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course it is, because he's the one you quote the most.
Bees.
I've made a terrible mistake.
And I just love how terrible of a person he is. I mean, they're all terrible people.
Let me give you an example of something in the show that actually annoyed me from season 4.
I'm most like Job.
I would agree with that. The Simon and Garfunkel bit, the "Hello Darkness, my old friend."
Yeah.
They did that maybe 4 or 5 too many times in one episode, like where it lost its joke. It lost its appeal. There are a few times where it was funny.
That's what that show
and they found some. But they found it was just one.
The Charlie Brown walk. Oh my god!
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice
to
throw it in, and it's nice for it to be a recurring joke. But there was one episode where it happened so many times. They did some interesting ones with it, like where he was hiding in a rock, and they did the song, but it sounded like it was in the rock. And then there was another one where they played it for him and Buster at the same time.
But it was
it was synced.
It was
behind.
Yeah. Oh my god.
When they walked away, like the other one,
it's perfect. Oh my god.
Yeah, just great. And the cameos in that show are fantastic.
Yeah,
too.
that's that was one thing that was a whole lot of fun to see in season 4 was the people that came in to do some, like, people that were already famous to come in and do, because
and the fact that the time had passed and that they don't.
when you're
they make it a joke.
When you're a comedic actor, it's sort of like how it's. I mean, it's exactly like Twin Peaks. How when you hear that Twin Peaks and Arrested Development are coming back, every actor jumps on board and says, "Please, let me be a part of it." Like Ed Helms. To my knowledge, I haven't seen him yet in the recut, but I think Krasinski did something small. Conan O'Brien did something. Abe Begley Jr. Came back. He was back to play the guy with alopecia. Ben Stiller's ex-wife came in for a cameo. Christine Taylor. Liza Minnelli, of course. So anyway, Liza Minnelli was green screened in horribly for during the Maritime trial that takes place with Lucille. And so the joke that was made with George Bluth is obviously this was back in the early seasons where Jeffrey Tambor plays George and Oscar Bluth, the twin brothers. And so Oscar and his friends are sitting down at the table, and George approaches and meets all of his friends. And Oscar says, brother, sit down, join me. And he goes, I'm going to sit here so it doesn't look as bad on screen or something like that because you can't have the same actor green screened in. So I thought that was really cool. just
to throw it out there, Jeffrey Tambor under some scrutiny right now for sexual misconduct allegations. He will be in the new season despite that, but
Jay, I made that point.
Oh, did you really?
10 minutes ago.
I have CT, so.
Jesus Christ.
I have CT. Are you excited for season 5?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a good way to get people excited by doing this.
We saw a trailer for 4 a while before that debut, though. We knew for a long time that was coming out in May of 13. So I'm anticipating a trailer maybe next week, as early as next week, to capitalize on the buzz that Recut got. I'm looking forward to seeing more people. I haven't talked to any AD fans other than a few people in our group about this. So I'd like to go back and talk to Cody about it, and Brando apparently is a huge AD fan as well. So I'm excited for this to come back in that way.
Right, for sure. You got anything else before we move on to our last topic?
No. So we finally got some insight on this whole DC streaming service thing, and this is is this the first? I don't know if niche is the word, but do you get what I'm saying when I say niche streaming service? It's a very particular streaming service.
I mean,
it's not just like an existing channel streaming service or a Netflix that's a broad library. This is a very particular streaming service.
Yeah, it definitely is, and it's an interesting play. I'm interested to see how well it does, but I'm also interested to see who else could potentially follow suit. Like we've already talked extensively about how the streaming wars and forcing audiences to potentially choose between one thing over another can be problematic. I mean, I could only imagine how that's going to get if instead of getting the Disney streaming service, you have the option. Well, it could be good. It could be a good thing if you got a Marvel and a Star Wars streaming service.
Isn't it it's as weird as if the Netflix Marvel series were their own streaming service? Like, that's how weird DC Universe kind of is. How new it kind of is. How new of an idea.
So the question, I think, for me on the surface from a business level is, let's just use the Disney streaming service as an example. Let's say Disney streaming was going to be, would you be okay for paying $14.99 a month for Disney streaming?
Yes.
Okay. What if...
under the assumption that everything that's been rumored will be on it, absolutely.
Do you think it would be a good move to say, okay, well, if you don't want to pay, or we'll go up even higher because they have premium stuff. What if it was $19.99 per month?
If it was included with Hulu.
Okay.
Like if it was a Hulu add-on, $19.99 for Hulu and Disney, because Disney, if they obtain, that would come later.
So
because Fox, is it Disney or Fox that owns I think it's Disney. Disney owns a portion of Hulu.
So let's break it down. if that's too much for people, would you be okay with doing $4.99 for individual like property streaming service, like a Marvel streaming service, and $4.99 for a Star Wars streaming service? Or would you just go all out and get the 20? You see what I'm getting at here?
No, not really, because why would it warrant $10 extra?
I don't know. That's the point I'm trying to make, though. So that's like me saying I could,
if the $10 extra
spend monthly to get Sling and have television, but I don't. So I spend the money to get the individual seasons of Mr. Robot, Legion.
Right. So I just wrote an article, why aren't you watching Legion anymore? And I was very focused on the decline, however obsolete they might be, the decline of weekly numbers,
right?
Viewership numbers for Legion. And as I'm writing this, I'm thinking, man, it's only a matter of time before people watch TV the way they used to again, because streaming services will just even out with the expense of cable and satellite again eventually. So
yeah, I mean, the idea that we're pitching here is, which is weird to say, a la carte streaming, right? I mean, it'd basically be like the idea of, imagine if Netflix broke off to where you could have Netflix, but you could also just get Netflix TV or Netflix movies, whatever the case may be. Point being, with this whole conversation and how it relates to DC, how much do you expect something like this? Should something like this cost as much as Netflix? Maybe the number's already out there, but let me frame up this conversation.
I don't think it has, because they haven't even put out a date yet.
Okay. Should it cost as much as HBO, Netflix,
no.
Hulu?
God,
agree.
no.
Totally agree. What's your valuation of this streaming service?
The most it would be is $7.99. I'm going $5.99 to $7.99.
For me personally, I would totally be on board with that if that's how much it costs.
Sure.
Yeah, I would personally.
Because the announcement came, the announcement was, what brand new series are we going to be putting on this thing? There's no doubt in my mind that there's going to be some of those DC animated series and movies that have existed all of these years. I think there's still going to be a decent library that accompanies it when it rolls out. But the primary announcement that we're talking about today are the 4 brand new original shows that we will be getting. So $5.99 to $7.99 is reasonable. I'm not saying that I would have it year round, but I would be totally fine I'm going to be ready to watch some of these series without a doubt.
Yeah. What's interesting, I think what sort of detracts from their model, so the real sell for the model is the new shows, without a doubt.
Oh, yeah.
What detracts from it is that a lot of the stuff that they could bundle with it, you can get on every single streaming platform, whether it be DC.
Not if they remove it.
Exactly, and that's where it gets interesting here again, which goes into this whole streaming wars discussion. My heat meter on this, as it stands currently, it's not particularly it's not even lukewarm. It's like cold verging on lukewarm, for the sole fact that that is not a statement on the quality of the DC TV stuff. In fact, I think of all the things, Marvel versus DC has figured out television. I really do think that. Could it be better? Absolutely. But I think it's pretty damn good. I've watched Arrow. I've made the jokes before that I think Arrow is, at least the seasons that I've watched, is a really cool show. I've been told Flash is good. It's just not specifically for me, so I'm not as on board with this. I am intrigued by some of the properties they've announced. So you want to go ahead and run down what they've announced?
Okay, so the 2 live action series, and the biggest selling point for me is easily Titans, based on Teen Titans. That, of all of the DC shows that have existed so far, just in general, Teen Titans is the one that I will gravitate towards.
Right.
Because not only does it have a Bat family element, but I really am a fan of all those characters, and so I'm really excited to see that. And the photos that have come out, it looks just genuinely great, and because it's not necessarily a CW show,
Right.
I'm more willing to accept it as something like I think they're going to be able to take a little bit more chances that they can't take on the CW.
This is one of the first questions I actually have is, do they take advantage of not being on cable television? Do they take advantage of being a streaming service?
So what goes against that hope and desire is the fact that it's accompanied by 2 other animated series.
Right.
Not that DC makes mature animated films, which is great.
For sure.
I just don't know what to make of the Harley Quinn and well, I know what Young Justice is. Young Justice is a Cartoon Network animated series, which is like a TV. Would you call that like a TVY7, like 7 to 14 kind of age range?
You know what, Ryan? I have no fucking idea.
You didn't watch like Justice League Unlimited or Batman Beyond?
I
and
watched
all that
those,
shit?
but I don't know what the TV
like a 7 to 11.
rating system is.
Okay.
It looks like maybe
pretty
a
self-explanatory.
Xenon 4th era, maybe a little bit of Snape. Maybe the moon is in Dumbledore.
It's just the age of the person.
Okay.
TVY7, 7-year-old.
Yeah. I'm intrigued to see what they bring to the table if they do decide to take chances here.
The other example of that is like a CBS Supergirl scenario, whereas like it's still
Supergirl is fucking great. Watch your mouth. The Supergirl season finale. I don't know. I said watch your mouth. I've heard you speak ill against it.
Supergirl is extreme cheese.
The Supergirl, one of the season finales or premieres, is the best Justice League movie that's ever come out.
Okay, great.
It's
my
great.
point is that even though the
fantastic.
show started out outside of the CW,
Right.
everyone saw it and was like, this is still a CW thing, and that's why it fit right into place when it came there. So that's what I'm saying. They could still be making a CW product, even though they should be taking advantage that it fits outside the bubble. It's produced by Greg Berlanti, who shepherds all of these other shows. So
shout out to Berlanti.
So who knows? I think the photos look fantastic. Like the costumes look way better than what I've seen out of the first seasons of all these other shows. That when you look back in retrospect, I mean, season 1 of Arrow's costume is hilarious. When you look back at it. So
let me ask this. If this doesn't pan out like they think it should, how long before they have to announce a Batman? If Batman was announced on this up front, people are flocking. Right?
Yes.
Like crazy.
Yes.
Even something as small as an updated Batman animated series would be fantastic.
I agree. You know what? I would put my money on it that's actually already in the works. Absolutely.
Animated?
Yes. Because
especially because of how much money I'm not going to say money, how much they push into that already. Like there's like a fucking Batman animated movie like every other year, it seems.
They just did Batman Ninja. It came out like last week or something like that.
Yeah.
So and then Gotham by Gaslight like a month ago as well. So anyway, we're talking about live action Titans, which speaks to me. Swamp Thing is the other live action series. And from Collider Heroes, I've heard nothing but incredible things about that book. I know next to nothing about it. Like Swamp Thing does sound lame to me, but because so many people speak highly of it, it makes me curious. And so Titans and Swamp Thing, honestly, is enough for me to try the streaming service out.
You've never seen anything Swamp Thing related?
I know nothing about it.
Really?
Yeah.
It
sounded like a Universal Monsters thing, and that's all I got for
Swamp Thing, the movies themselves are not good, except I think Swamp Thing looks fucking awesome. Especially as a kid, I was like, man, this guy looks cool. He's like a cross between a monster and a superhero.
It's like a Scooby-Doo villain is what that guy is.
Kind of looks like it. But he does look pretty badass.
I've heard a lot of great things, so that's enough to sell me. Don't know a whole lot about that, but Young Justice is sort of a semi-Arrested Development kind of story, whereas it got canceled and people have been asking for Netflix to renew that thing because it does exist on Netflix right now, the first 2 seasons, I believe. That show just has every character you could ever possibly love. So I get why a lot of people enjoy that show. And so that's sort of a nice little tale that gets to have a comeback season. So excited for that. And the Harley Quinn animated series, which is very cool. So I think that Harley Quinn is just they're capitalizing on the popularity of the character, but also think it's going to be it's going to welcome a Batman one right after.
Yeah.
Or at least an appearance.
Yeah, I mean, I hope for the best for this. Like, I really do. I love the narrative, and maybe I'm the only one that has it. I don't think I am, but I love the narrative that even though DC in movies is still trying to figure its way out, that it does have this really deep and rich history on television right now, and that it has a large fan base. I think it's great. I think it's great for comic book on screen in general, and I want it to succeed, and I want it to expand. So we already talked about the amount of money that we would like it to be, but I think I may invest into this just specifically so that it succeeds, because everybody knows that it's going to hinge on whether or not I pay attention to it.
You trying to do some Sight and Sound recap shows? We gotta. Maybe that's the thing that finally gets us to commit to TV content on YouTube.
You know what's hilarious about doing recap podcasts on Sight and Sound is it always stresses me the fuck out, because it's something to add to our schedule. But it's been fine lately because we got in a routine of doing Counterpart and Legion back to back. And we talked about doing these 30-minute truncated episodes so that we could make them as efficient as possible with our schedules. But it's also just been eye-opening to me of like, they really don't need to be longer than that. And sometimes we do go longer, right? Sometimes we do go longer than those 30 minutes, and it's fine.
I agree.
Yeah.
Is that all we got?
That's all we got.
I want to start a new tradition.
I was going to play with the shirts, but okay.
I'm not there yet. So I wanted to start this new thing where we take a question, have a little fun at the very end, take a question from the Facebook group, and we answer it. And so I threw it out to the Facebook group. So if you haven't joined the Facebook group, you can do that and ask us a question, and we will do it at the end of every Sight and Sound Weekly if we do have fun with it. So a lot of you asked questions. I'm going to go with my favorite from our boy Ross Cassidy. This looks to be pretty fun. Also, it'll help. I'm also looking for not only necessarily pop culture questions, but we have another great question from Marcos asking why we continue to butcher the pronunciation of flourish. Questions like that.
Oh, no, he's in the group and he's not in on it?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Some of those questions are valuable because they will help new listeners get in on the jokes.
Shout out to Marcos.
From episodes past. That's for another time. Ross Cassidy, however, wants to know what movie or TV show, in the spirit of reboots and comebacks, what movie or TV show from your youth, or from whenever really, would you like to see get the remake or reboot treatment, Jay Williams?
Man, prep on this question would have been fantastic, but I guess we're firing off the top of our heads. I mean, I kind of just answered it with the Batman animated series.
Is that really it?
I mean, I don't know if that's it, if that's specifically the one that I want to come back, but I mean, I've spoken about this quite a bit when we have discussed Better Call Saul, and I know it's not from childhood, but I think I would love to see Better Call Saul move into the future and provide. Listen, let's not fuck around here, okay? Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston, they're not doing jack shit right now. They're just not. They show up in some things. The Path just got fucking canceled. Bryan Cranston allegedly appears in Sneaky Pete.
You want them to do You want them to do Breaking Bad season 6, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
But you want to get the band back together?
Yeah. Even though allegedly that Walter White is dead, but
I don't know if that works.
I don't know if it does either. But
I think
it's my favorite TV show of all time. So yeah, of course I want to see it.
I think it sounds like a terrible idea.
No, it's a great idea.
I don't think it is.
You
run the risk of spoiling the greatest show of all time.
That's not even necessarily
with excess.
That's not even necessarily what I'm talking about specifically. I knew I threw that out, but it's more for comedic value. I would like to see Better Call Saul move into the future.
Yeah,
in that world, expand that world, because we know that what's that guy's name that does that show?
Vince Gilligan.
Yeah, we know he's a massive failure outside of Breaking Bad. It's like a running take we have. It's based on you. You're the one that fed me that information.
Yeah, whatever happened to Beaver Creek? Get the hell out of here with that.
The other thing that I will say about reboots and just bringing something back.
Beaver Creek. Battle Creek, excuse me.
This
Beaver Creek.
This Disney Fox deal is opening the door for, the Peter Berg producing the television series of X-Men.
But what about The Gifted? That was your favorite show from last year.
The Gifted was actually pretty good. The 30 seconds that I watched of it. Yeah, Peter Berg producing a Friday Night Lights.
So do you have a 10th answer to this question, or can I go now?
No,
you just gave like 8 choices.
It's time for we have another hour because it's time for my pitch of Peter Berg's Friday Night Lights style high school X-Men drama. Go ahead. What do you have to say?
I want to see Johnny Quest on the big screen.
Oh, God. Here we go.
That is a franchise and a property that more than anything deserves the big screen treatment.
You know who I think should play Johnny Quest? Zac Efron.
That was the fan casting from like 10 years ago. And
Makes sense to me.
He was never even blonde, and you have to make him a teenager. Like, he has to be a Tom Holland looking type person.
Nah, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything.
Yep. So anyway, if you'll let me continue with this, Johnny Quest. My idea for Johnny Quest was very similar. Actually, the idea that I came up with for my spec script of Johnny Quest, it essentially was very similar to what we got with Tomb Raider this year. So if you can do sort of more family oriented, more of an ensemble Tomb Raider that's more tech oriented. If you do Tomb Raider meets James Bond, but youths, I think you could do it. A little hint of Indiana Jones as well. It's screaming big screen treatment, and I don't know why they haven't done it yet. You got to get George Clooney to play Dr. Quest. I think that would be fantastic. You got to give Haji like some kind of like telekinesis, some crazy shit like that, and just go ape shit with it. I think that would be awesome.
One other thing I want to throw out there. I think it's time to do something with Back to the Future. I think enough time has passed. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not a movie, but yeah, I would like to see not a sequel. I don't want a sequel. I don't want Back to the Future Part 4. I'd like to see a rebooted version of Back to the Future. I know people are like, "How dare you?" Let's just do it.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's time.
It just
makes sense. Especially because I love how people get so defensive about remakes, but we've had them for so long now that there are good remakes out there.
Sure.
It's okay.
I'm with you.
And if you don't like it, you can just go back and watch the original.
I was going to say, I don't know if, no matter how bad it might be, I don't know if it'll ever... It's very similar to Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Just how, like, okay, the fourth one's terrible, but we still love those first 3, and it doesn't matter. So
Matrix, the other 2 Matrix movies that complete the story don't taint how incredible and how groundbreaking the original Matrix film was.
I agree. I don't have a problem with that.
Where can they find you online?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. And halfway through this season of Legion.
Season of Legion.
Yeah, and we're doing more written content. So I just wrote something about Legion. I'm probably going to start transcribing some of Jay's musical takes. And so you will probably see us link those from time to time. So if you want to see written content from Sight and Sound, make sure that you're following me. And you can also find it in the Facebook group. The link to that is in the description below. We have a good time chatting with our friends over there, talking music, movies, and TV. So come join us and watch Legion with us.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at jwilliams. J to the A to the Y to the E. It's the same for both. SightSoundPod.com. There's always been a link in the description. Whether or not you've clicked on it, I'm not sure. But that's where you can buy merchandise, T-shirts, throw pillows. Throw pillows? Is that right?
Yeah.
Pillows, iPhone cases, Android cases, bags, whatever you want to buy. You can buy it there. There's a ton of designs already that exist. Some really fun designs. We're going to be uploading some new ones for the summer very, very, very soon. In fact, I'm working on that when we're recording this on a late Sunday night or Saturday night. I'm going to be working on it tomorrow. We also have some TV-centered shirts coming out. One for Legion I'm going to be doing. Going to do one for Counterpart since we recapped that as well, so be on the lookout for that. That's pretty much all I've got. Album reviews coming on the YouTube channel all this coming week, so be on the lookout for that as well. You got anything else?
Nope.
All right, we're out of here. Goodbye.